We'll go ahead and call the workshop to order. Do I have a motion to call the workshop? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, introduction of the Sunday sales ordinance. The one thing that I did find out is the Sunday sales cannot go on the March ballot. It would be May, and it looks like May the 20th is going to be the date for that election, if it goes to the ballot. The one thing that I did ask Alicia to do, I called around because I know it was, we talked about what it was going to cost to do an election. Talked to several cities about the size of us with about the same populations, and they told me anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 is what their normal elections cost. In LJ and East LJ, their elections are done by their county, and there's a guy that actually does them for the county too. He says because of the size of his county and his cities there that he would not be able to handle probably doing ours. I do have calls into a couple of other cities and counties to see if there's anybody there that would be interested, and then I do have someone that is local here that is interested in even looking at doing our election. Talked to Mary Ann about the possibility, Mary Ann Connor from the Board of Elections, about the possibility of, with that being a primary election, if it's possible that some, because your districts are set up differently. When you actually pull the paperwork, you can pull the city of Blue Ridge, the city of McCaysville voters, and I guess the city of Morganton, to see if it's possible that the cards that they have when they do their election, if they can be loaded with that question put on there. I think she was going to investigate that or check on that to even see if that's possible. May not be, but with the technology and with it being computer, I can't really see how they couldn't do that actually. So that's something we're holding and waiting for. I had Alicia run some numbers of what a normal election would be, because I think maybe even Angie Arp had asked the question at one time what our elections cost. In the past, our elections were a little over $1,000, but we weren't doing them correctly. If you take and do the advertising, the legal, the printing, the poll machine maintenance, the training, office supplies, that's $1,672 alone. So $1,000 would not take care of an election. And in her totals at the bottom, I don't think she was able to pull a couple of the other fees. And I can, there's more of these if somebody in the audience wants a copy.
Well, $1,672.49 was the budgeted amount, it wasn't the actual expenses.
That,
You got it.
that's, she actually pulled the expenses, she pulled it on that, what she told me, she was pulling.
I'm just saying, that's showing budgeted.
That's what she would put in an election budget for that. She actually took and pulled this.
I'm passing these out. So
She actually pulled up David Siphon's information as to how many hours it would have been before we got to the election.
Okay, I'm just saying this is
anyway,
budgeted amount. Not
and then the advanced voting, if you take it $8 an hour for 3 workers, 8.5 hours a day, 15 days, $3,060, which you are supposed to have 3 people at the polls. Superintendent, we estimate that at $15 an hour. The one thing I forgot to ask her in this, if we were paying FICA and all of that, so I don't know, those numbers could change a little bit if we were having to pay that, so I don't know if we do it as a contract or what, but this is just a rough estimate, so an election for us would be a little over $7,000. Just to have a rough number, just so you can kind of see. It could be more, it could be less, but. And I do think that was something that we discussed as to what an election would be, should be, could be. The other thing that I did learn, the machines that we have, which all of y'all have seen, those big machines, those were given to us by the county. There is only one man that works on those, and I understand he's getting pretty old. He's 80-something years old. And it's possible that the state in the next 2 to 3 years may not even let us use those machines anymore. They may just go ahead and ban those. If they do, we'll have to go to the computers. Mary Ann said those computers are about $3,000 a piece. If we have to do that, you have to have 2 to vote on, 1 for backup, and 1 to load your cards. So it would require us to have 4 machines. But she says the county, and Lindos may even know the answer, and I did see her sleep in, has budgeted to buy new machines, and they may possibly rotate those down to us.
They have budgeted to buy new ones.
haven't maybe there hasn't been a vote or even a consideration. I mean, I'm sure if y'all submitted, I don't know what McCaysville uses.
I don't
But-
either. I think they've got, they may do paper ballots. Do you know?
But I think that the reason that we have, the reason that the county has what it has is because we were involved in there were some questions as to some elections. We had a couple of lawsuits, and they basically said, this is what we're going to, and we were one of the first counties in the state to have those, so our machines are some of the older ones.
Yeah, but ours are so old. I mean, I was told by a couple of people, they were really surprised they still let us use those.
I'm very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from the guy from LJ and a couple of others too.
But they can use paper ballots? Maybe you just go back to paper.
Yeah, and it's possible, but if the county does rotate those down, we would really like to be the first stepchildren on the list there for them to inherit those. So, because that could be a pretty big expense, and if not, that is something that we're gonna have to budget for probably in the next few years because of our major election that'll come up every 4 years. So that's what I've learned. I'm not through. I've got calls into other counties, other cities, so hopefully after that I'll have even more information. So there's a comparison. That number is a pretty realistic number, and Alicia went through and pulled everything, so just something to look at, something to study. And had we done what we should have the last time, we wouldn't have had, well, and of course in that 1,091, there's nothing calculated for what should have been labor. So if you take the 1,091 just as material and you actually add the labor cost to it, it would have been more. So I think we just didn't do it, apparently. I don't know. I was on the ballot. I wasn't mayor at that time. Well, yeah, 2009 election I wasn't.
Well, I feel that we need to get the whole election thing nailed down before we
I think we
move
have
forward.
time now.
Yeah, since we got
Because
time.
since it's not March, and the only thing that can be on the ballot in March is the vacancies for offices. So, just wanted to give you that. Anybody else have any questions about that?
I have a couple of questions. What Steve brought up last time, I mean, did you look into the legality of any kind of donation based to help with that budgeting?
I thought I would get this information
First,
first.
yeah.
And then if the council wasn't willing to do that, then I guess they asked for handouts.
Okay.
So, do you have another question?
I forgot it.
You'll never even stop me. Anybody else? Okay. Second, distillery resolution or ordinance. That's in your packet, I do believe.
Did you finish up on one there, Don?
Nobody had any questions. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted that was all.
Yeah, nobody raised their hand.
And reading through this distillery, we need to, I need to set the fee also. The attorney recommended we keep it the same as what the brewery fee is.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? You want me to go ahead and have him plug that in?
We can just vote on it tonight I guess it'd be all in motion. I mean, that was his recommendation, make it the same, because he said we could go up to $5,000, but he recommended that we keep it the same, that way they'd be in line. I mean, 2,000.
Any questions on the distillery?
So you're recommending that you're gonna keep it at 2,000, or you're gonna keep this 2,000 instead of 5,000?
That was a recommendation from the attorney to keep it in line with the brewery.
I'm reading that, but are you gonna agree with that, or?
Oh, well, that's what we were discussing.
Oh, okay.
Just one vote. Purchase of master meters, that's the third thing. after this last week and all the issues that we had, the one thing that really helped is we have 5 master meters, but for some reason 3 of those were not working properly for different reasons, all 3 of them apparently. And 2 of them were, and that really helped us isolate some of our problems and a big part of our problems. And those people actually struggled without water for various times throughout the day. But it did help us identify and locate several leaks. That was not all the leaks we had, and it was really nice because we could just, you know, go take care of those. But the others, we had to bring in crews at night. You know, guys worked pretty much around the clock for several days trying to make sure that we could get ourselves to where we were stable to be able to even help McKaysville out. And there was one point we did have to cut McKaysville off when they really did need water, but they made it through it. So, and we've talked about it, and I think we've approved it to, at one point, to do 2.
I know we talked about it. We actually, after talking to Shannon and Becky, we actually need 4 6-inch and 1 8-inch. That intersection that we were talking about a while ago, it doesn't actually attach. They intersect there, the pipes do, but they don't actually connect. So that meter would work for leaving town. So.
They're getting quotes. I don't think those are back.
We got.
Did they come in? They weren't here yesterday.
I've got a couple. Looks like the 6-inch are going to be about $6,000 a piece, and the 8-inch we don't have a quote on the 8-inch. That's with all the hardware that goes with it. They're actually about $4,000, and then there's the flanges and all that stuff that you have to buy too. So it ends up being about right around $6,000 for the 6-inch a piece.
Yeah, they should have been put on a long time ago, in my opinion. So I think we all saw that there was a major need. And we do have the money to cover it, so I do think that's something we need to move forward with. Approved weights for new tractors. We got a new tractor, and I think we were real surprised to realize that the quote did not include the weights. So that was $1,200.
Yeah, a little over 1,200, which we have to have them. They're 2,500-pound weights. So.
Keep them from tipping over and having issues. So they'll need that to be able to operate. NGR resignation from Board of Appeals. We do have someone that is interested in doing that, and it's Nathan Nicholson. That's the only name that I have at this point. Does anybody have anybody else?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, so you have Nathan Nicholson and Michael Eaton.
Nancy Wehunt has mentioned to me that she would like to, that she's interested. Nancy Wehunt. She lives up on College Street.
Angie, what was the name, please?
Nancy Wehunt.
Thank you. Here's the chair, though. You won't want it. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, we never have that many people wanting to volunteer. We have to beg. Reappointment of Donnie Gillum. He would like to remain on the Planning Commission. Donnie's done a really good job for us, and I think this might be his 2nd term. Is that right, Rodney?
Yes, it is.
I think so, but he does a good job, so hope y'all will consider reappointing him. Kathy Thompson is here. Hey, Kathy.
Hi.
You want to
I'd like to present a concern that I have for a project that you started 3 years ago and that is required to be finished by the end of this year and is still moving very slowly. In 2011, the city of Blue Ridge was given, and you will remember this because you worked with us on it, was given land as a donation. The idea being that it would be a park. The land goes from Mineral Springs facility towards the city. The idea was to, the idea goes all the way back to 1987 when a trail was developed by Dr. Walter Cook from the University of Georgia. And Dr. Cook came back. We looked at the trail itself. I was paid by the city as a consultant to help write the grant and also to train an employee in grant writing, which she's gotten quite adept at. But the idea is it's a flat trail. It goes along the creek. It was proposed in 1987. It had to be updated. He had to come up here and redo the trail because the setbacks and environmental requirements had changed since then. He redid the plan. It was submitted in November. You paid me in November. I checked my invoices.
Last year?
Of 2011. I have a copy of it here.
I didn't realize you even wrote the grant for us. I thought Sally wrote it.
Yeah, it was the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, and it's the Georgia Recreation Trails Program grant application. Okay, also involved was the Benton McKay Trail people, and because they were involved, we talked about it becoming a trail town, and you are now a trail town. Part of their planning, the idea is a flat trail. You know, there are a lot of trails in this county, but they go up and down and many people can't do them. That was part of it. The other part, again, dates back to 1987 when a number of people worked on it, and that is the recreation of the historic area where the springs was. The grant includes money for redoing the pavilion, for signage that goes with it. There was a building in the middle, there were parking areas. Anyhow, the grant was submitted. You paid me in November of 2011. You got the grant in 2012. Okay, so far I can't tell that anything's happened.
We're getting ready to move on it right now, as a matter of fact. I think it was the last month's meeting, or possibly the month before, I had to go back and look, but we had voted to put out for bid underbrushing to get the project started. And once it's underbrushed, then we're going to go back in and start. I've actually talked to Bruce quite a bit about this also, and we're going to be putting together the bid requirements actually within the next couple of days.
My understanding is you only have the end of this calendar year.
Right.
And I will be on your case for the rest of the year.
Well, you'll be on my case, you'll be on Bruce's case.
Bruce's case, okay. I'll be on Bruce's. I like Bruce.
Kathy, let me tell you what I know about it. Our paperwork was executed August the 28th of 2012. After that period of time, we learned we still didn't, we had a
You
deed
spent,
issue.
that's my understanding, that you
There
spent
was
quite a
deed
bit of
issue,
time
and
actually
that-
doing the actual transfer.
I know Sally kind of got that all corrected. I think there were some issues with the other property from Miss Whaley, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is.
So that's been done, and then we had to have somebody come up and do an environmental, and I did talk to Walter Cook. I've talked to him a couple of times, and if you know Walter, his wife has been in the nursing home. He actually brought her home yesterday. And he's supposed to be here next week to flag. So, I mean, we've been waiting on him about 2 months.
Okay, I mean, this is just such a sad thing if it doesn't happen.
It will.
I mean,
he
it's,
said that he was
yeah.
going to be in town, and I've talked with Ralph Heller. You're probably familiar with Ralph from Benton.
Yeah, and that's one of the
Couple times.
issues. One of the reasons why Benton McKay made you a trail town
Yeah.
was they have hopes, and they're trying to get easements, just for hiking, all the way up to the trail. The idea being that a trail would run from Benton McKay all the way down to this trail in town, and all the way, and there would be a parking area so people could park there and hike the trail even for several days and come back. So that, to be a trail town without a trail would not be good.
Well, Mr. Heller came and did a presentation also for the city council probably a year ago, maybe. And that was his goal, and of course we did approve to become a trail town last spring, I
Right.
think. sometime.
And the other thing is that in the grant, and I don't say this for monetary reasons because it's not much money and I don't need the money, although I'll take it. In the grant is money to do the research and to get the signs and to set the whole thing up with the pavilion. The pavilion is a construction issue. You'd have to look at it, the photos, and try to recreate it as best possible. But I'm in the grant to do the signage, and I need to know with some lead time to start that process. The people with the Fannin County Historical Society will be working with me, and we have to come up with what we want on those signs, what we want people to know. Do you want photos on the signs? What kind of signs do you want? So that's something else that I need to start working on, and would like to do that as soon as you're ready, which I hope is soon.
It will be.
I'm going to be a nag.
Well, I don't think we had all the paperwork back from the Whaley's, which did hold it up for some
Yeah, I
time.
understand it was held up. My concern right now is unavoidable things held it up, but you've only got a little over 11 months to finish this.
Well, Mr.
That's not
Cook-
an easy task in the amount of time that's left. So I think it has to become a priority, and I want to make sure that this is a priority.
That's fine. Thank you. Any other questions? Chad Clemens is probation period, is that next month? Or
At the end of this month.
At the end of this
Yes.
month?
He's been a good employee, get out there and did it. I'm gonna make the recommendation this evening that we go ahead and put him to full-time. He's done a great job.
Any questions? Four-way stop Mountain Street and East Main Street.
We've had yet other requests. We've discussed this probably over a year's period. Traffic backs up, as you all know, down East Main Street, and especially on high-traffic weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And what's happening is people are pulling out in front of pedestrians. There's a pedestrian crossing right there. There's a high probability someone's going to get hurt. And we've had Greg Cook, he went out and did a informal study, and he said that the state's not doing that anymore, but he did suggest that something's going to have to take place there. People stop there naturally, they think it's a four-way stop, which causes actually more problems than if they just continued on Mountain Street. But they're stopping thinking it's a four-way stop. So I think we need, as a council, need to look at that and determine what we're going to do.
The only issue I see with making it a four-way stop is the heavy bus traffic through there.
Actually,
Because
yeah, we thought about that.
They back up all the way across railroad tracks,
Yeah.
just from the red light on top of the hill.
One of the suggestions that Greg had on that's the only time the traffic really gets, because we did correct it. The light at at the top of Mountain Street, when we first came into office, it was, now they can turn right now. So it can create backup. One of the suggestions on that was possibly going down, let the buses go down to the next street, take a left and come out East Main and stop it that way, and then go right if it becomes an issue. So through the week, I
Are you
don't
talking
think
about
it's
school buses mainly or tour buses?
School buses,
Yeah,
when school buses come through, they line up just from the red light all the way down through that intersection across the railroad tracks, and then it's gonna back it up from coming down the hill
Yeah.
in the opposite time.
That was the suggestion, going down to the next red light, work with Benny Long with the bus garage, and maybe going down to the next street, taking a left, and coming back down East Main, the opposite direction, and taking a right, if it does become an issue.
And Greg Cook worked for the state.
He works for us.
Greg
Not
Cook.
Greg Cook, I'm
Greg
sorry.
Cook.
Greg
Oh.
Cook.
Walter
Greg Cook.
Cook was the guy with the
That's one of my customers, I'm sorry. Yeah, Greg Hood. So Greg has, and he's talked to Sam Wheeler and several people. Sam actually came up several years ago. He said that the state wasn't allowed to do formal studies like that because of lack of funding, but he also viewed it and said he recommended a four-way stop there. So, well, they both did. Yeah, Wes did and Sam. So we're going to have to look at doing something right there before someone gets hurt.
Putting that turn signal up there helped, but it's just, and I think we've done a different setting going up the hill because it used to hold for a long time, and I think that Bill has changed that light for, a different setting, but it's still a problem.
Well, I don't know, if we put a four-way stop where I sit back and traffic up in 4 different directions instead of just 2.
It does anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually stopping, so they stop. And the problem is and I think what is happening, people get really impatient on East Main because it's so it's just highly congested down through there. So what's happening, people just jet out into the road without caution, and we're going to have to do something. Someone's going to end up getting hurt right there.
I say that everybody starts using that intersection, some driving through there at different times of the day to kind of watch it themselves before we actually make a decision.
Now, a suggestion,
Spend time with
and make
that.
sure you go on a busy weekend,
Go
because
at different
that's
times.
when the problems are. And if we have to, another suggestion was maybe having a police officer out there on the weekends directing traffic. Having people stop, and when you see that it's backing up down East Main, doing it that way, which I'm sure Johnny would love that, wouldn't he? But even Johnny sees it as a
They do
problem.
help us out down there with it when they get calls.
And I have video of it too. I've been monitoring this for the last year and I have taken video. So I'd be glad to share that with you guys if you would like.
Well, we kind of noticed something slow down, just to check, see what that person's gonna do.
Yeah.
These out of towners, there's so many stop signs, four-way stops, and the city is coming confusing. All the way down.
And that's why I think they stopped.
I think your locals do slow down just because they know how heavy the traffic gets in there, but most of the people on that street, a lot of them are out of towners that don't know.
Yeah,
and they just
that's where they
assume.
get confused and they'll stop and realize, oh, it's a flashing yellow.
But when I was a kid, there was a traffic light right there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You were too, Bruce.
don't
Look at
remember
me
those
like
days. I don't remember
like
those
I'm
days.
old or something.
And that might be a
There was a
too.
traffic light there back in the day.
I don't know. But let's all look at it and see, what we can do to help protect, especially the walking traffic. So,
All right, Summit Street CDBG. Anybody else have any questions about the four-way stop? Everybody's gonna,
I just would like to say, I think having a traffic light there would be a better solution. I actually drive down East Main quite often and sit at that intersection. And I think with a traffic light, you would be able to have a walk button for people to actually get a walk signal to go across the street. When the light turns up at East First and comes down, you're going to have a major backup because when that light turns, a lot of times you've got a lot of cars coming back, and if they're all stopped at that stop sign, they're going to back all the way out into East First. So I think a traffic light might be a better idea. Just not for me.
And we could probably work on timing those
If we get them
lights.
timed together where they work in
So it
sequence,
don't
that'd be the,
back up the hill, closest point back in the field.
that'd be the ideal situation there.
I agree.
all right, Summit Street CDBG. Talked to Mr. Mashburn this morning. He has, the last time I had talked with David Siphon, I had asked him to get with Angela DeLorme, which is Mr. Mashburn's attorney, and see if the two of the attorneys could work something out that everybody is happy with. And I think Angela must be very busy. He's not been able to get with her, and I've not been able to get through to her.
No, he sent in his email, said that he talked to Angela about this matter and she is not representing Mr. Mashburn on this, that she hasn't even talked to him about this, is what the
But
email
he has
said.
dropped it by her office, and I called Angela myself to even see if she had it. And I have not been able to get a phone call back from her, and she usually does call me back. So I'm hoping to go by her office when I leave here to just see if she does have it and if she is working on it. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Well, they kind of need to answer because we're going to be held up on this thing. Mr. Crane refuses to sign an easement. Mr. Mashburn refuses to sign a hold harmless saying that he has this easement right across through there, which he's getting the line and the sewer pump is about $10,000 put in. You know, if he's got a clear easement, I don't understand why he won't sign it. You know, he's getting $10,000 sewer line run to him,
About
and
$15,000.
there's not actually a sewer issue there because the Fannin County Health Department's been out there. They determined that there wasn't a sewer issue coming from the trailer, that it was animals in the field causing the fecal matter in the creek. 3 state people have been out there, and each one of them found that the fecal matter was more than likely coming from the animals in the field and not the double wide. So I mean, we're kind of in a situation where we need to make a determination to either take this out or put it in. And you know, we gave Mr. Mashburn an opportunity to say, I've got a clear easement, you know.
You have a copy of his easement.
And he won't sign the whole harmless saying, you know, hey, I'll take responsibility because I have it. So I mean, it's not like I haven't given the opportunity.
Well, Mr. Mashburn told me today he had asked Bill Sowers about it, and Bill told him there's no way he would sign it. So that's where his advice has come from at this point. So I did tell him he needed to make sure he got a hold of Angela. He's left the paperwork, he's just not talked to her. So maybe she can help explain to him his hold harmless. That's what I would think would help.
David's email said he talked to her and she said that she wasn't representing him on this matter. So,
Well, she's the one that sent me the paperwork that shows his easement. Is Angela Ballon.
that's what the email said.
But I haven't talked to Angela since then, so I'll know once I talk to her. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Need 3 new computers. I think they are having major problems with their computers freezing up.
One crashed. Bill's is,
Can't turn it on, the screens go off.
Yeah, all kinds of issues, so I
This will be
think,
for Bill, the front and the water plant.
I think they're.
for who?
Bill, the front desk and the water plants. He took
One of the
it.
ones at the front desk is really, really old, and Bill's computer's 15 years old, he told me, so. I do think it's time to buy 3 new computers. Have we gotten quotes on yet?
I think they were 3,000.
Are they in there?
689, looks like.
$893. Is that what I'm looking at? Janet,
Stand up. Can I sit down? I'm here in regards to some property that I own on the corner of East Main and Messer Street. And this is regarding curb cuts and access off East Main onto this particular piece of property. I presented to the council, I believe it was in May of 2013, regarding this situation, and it was not resolved at that time to my satisfaction, so I'm back. And I'll just start back at the beginning of this little story. I had a phone call back in April of 2013 from a merchant downtown who said to me, they're putting new sidewalks in, and there's a big curb, the sidewalk is very high in front of your property. We've been using this particular lot for our nonprofit rescue group, Tri-State Pet Rescue, to show animals and to park cars for donations for our group. And we were using access off East Main on the old sidewalk, which was not elevated to the extent that we couldn't drive cars up on to the lot from East Main Street. And so the project began putting new sidewalks in, because of course we had also deeded the easement to the city so that they could use the sidewalk for the street, whatever, I forgot what it's called. Streetscape, yeah, back in the day. So anyway, this merchant calls me and says, look, they're putting this sidewalk in, and it's quite a curb jump to get up onto your lot. And of course I hadn't been called or notified, or, nothing had been said to me. So I sent a text message at 1:07 on Tuesday, April the 23rd, 2013 to Mayor Whitener, just making, and my text was just making sure the entrance to my lot on East Main will be fixed before the Johnson crew is finished. We need access from East Main to keep our Saturday fundraising going. Please update me. Wish I had known this project was happening. And I didn't know anything about it. And let's take note, though, that the sidewalk was flat enough for people to access my lot from East Main without having a curb cut before the new sidewalk went in, just as the sidewalk was flat across the street into a parking lot directly across the street from my lot without a curb cut. And so then at 7:21 on that same day, Tuesday, April the 23rd, I sent one more text to Mayor Whitener saying, Donna, please give me a call when you get a chance. Thanks, Jan. So I heard nothing that day. This is pretty critical to me. It might not have been important to her, but it was important to me. And so then at 8:13 a.m. on Wednesday, April the 24th, 2013, I got a text back and said, sorry, from the mayor, sorry Jen, I did not realize my ringer was off. I turned it off for meetings. They still have to work, they still have work to do, but should not interfere with you getting in on the weekend. I have to meet someone this morning. As soon as I get free, I'll follow up and call you. And then I replied, I just want them to fix our access from East Main. This was on Wednesday. I found out the sidewalk across the street had gone in on that Tuesday, and the owner of that building had gone over and complained to the city hall, and Boombo, guess what? They got a curb cut. When I then complained, I was told it had to go to a vote of the council for me to get my curb cut. I found that to be quite interesting, since my son was, and still is as of this moment, a city council person. It was very obvious that if mine had to go to a vote, because he's very ethical, that he would abstain from the vote, which is what I would expect from someone who is ethical. And that's exactly what he did, so therefore I didn't get the vote to put the curb cut in. But let's back this thing out a little bit more. I also, when I went over to the lot on, let's see, on Thursday, or at some point during this Tuesday to Thursday session, I realized that the curb coming down the Messer Street side of my lot, which we had negotiated back in the day when we got when we gave the easement to the city for the streetscape project, because we are taking all the water off East Main. It's coming down like a waterfall on us every time it rains heavily down that hill. So when they asked easement for that sidewalk, which I was happy to do, but I said, well, I'll give you that when you give me a curb down Messer Street to hold the water off of me, which they did. The city was very agreeable. There were no issues there. So I had a solid curb. Well, unbeknownst to me, the mayor and I believe Ms. Rhonda Thomas had gone over and authorized 2 curb cuts on that particular curb coming down Messer Street, which what that did was just like opening the floodgates. So now I'm sucking water coming off East Main every time it rains hard, and I've got also videos and photographs to show that too. It's like a river. So now we're back to where we were. This lot now just puddles like a lake when it rains hard. But, and they had even, though, without asking me, were starting to form up to get ready to put a sidewalk from East Main all the way up to East First Street on my lot, without even asking me. This is after they cut the curb 2 times down Messer Street. I still had not even been consulted about this. I said, I don't think there's going to be a sidewalk up my property. Oh, but it's good for the city, I was told. I don't really care what's good for the city. At this point, that's my property, and we're not going to put a sidewalk up that property without even asking me. The audacity. But anyway, I'll try not to get my blood pressure up, but it just burns me up. So in order, though, for me, oh, and what we're doing is better for you, better for you. We're putting those 2 curb cuts in, and you might take note that one of those curb cuts violates almost every regulation the city has for curb cuts. I found that to be quite interesting and somewhat ironic in its proximity to an intersection, a fire hydrant, and it goes on and on. So anyway, I'm here today because I want that access off East Main Street. I want my curb cut, just like the Fezziwigs parking lot. That's what I referred to it as. The building across the street got theirs by just going in and complaining. Here I am almost a year later, still having to come back before the council. I want the curb cut, and I also, because we have sucked so much water since that curb was cut in 2 places without my permission, I would also like for the city to put some gravel on our lot so that we can go back to work and use that lot for a good purpose for this community. It is a nonprofit group. We provide parking, which is the city desperately needs. The animals benefit, and we are making a positive change and a good service for this community on that lot. So that is my presentation. I would hope that the council now, after almost a year, would put some gravel on there so we can get back in business and give us our curb cut off East Main and let us figure how we're going to work that Messer Street business where the mayor and the one city council person authorized the curb to be cut twice without even consulting me. I'm only wanting what's fair, and I really am hoping to get that curb cut back. And if y'all have questions you want to ask me, I'll be glad to entertain them. But I'm not a happy
I would like to say, I
taxpayer.
would love to meet with the new council members and show you guys our streetscape plans that the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and that does not have a curb cut there. But I would like to go over that with you because we're starting that streetscape project, and it would be a shame for the taxpayers to have to spend that amount of money to redo that portion of our engineering plans. But if I may, I would love to meet with you guys today and show you that, go over it with you so you understand fully the full concept of what's going on without voting impetuously.
And I would be more than happy to meet with you also. I would also like for you to take note that the taxpayers paid to have the curb put in down the Messer Street side of my lot, and then the taxpayers paid again to have it taken out.
And if you want
so
that
was,
taken away,
I'm just,
I mean, we would be glad to put that curb back up.
And there was also a reason that was done. There was a drain issue there that was flooding out some buildings, and on the other side of the property, there were some problems. And they had to, there's not only a drain issue there was also a drain issue down the main street. There was also a sewer issue just right above there, which this council is pretty familiar with. So there was a lot of different things that had to happen there. It was put back like it was. And
I beg to differ with you. It was not put back like it was.
It was not lowered to your
There are
level.
two curb cuts. There are two curb cuts down the Messer Street side on my lot that
On the
were
front
not
side,
there.
excuse me, I'll rephrase that. The front sidewalk was put back like it was.
It was raised. It is much higher than it was. I have photographs. It is much higher than it was.
Well, I don't think they used to pour concrete years ago quite as thick as they do now.
That's irrelevant. We're not arguing that.
It was because you said it was raised, so
It is raised just as the one on the other side of the street was also raised, and there was never a curb cut there. We also have photographs to prove that. But yet, those people got their curb cut across the street.
I think
Just
there was
saying.
a curb
No,
cut
there
across
wasn't.
the
I have-
street because.
No, I've seen pictures also, there's not.
We have
You know,
photographs.
As
So saying
many
it
of y'all
doesn't
probably
make it
know, we're not
so.
going to be a council member tonight at the meeting after the new council is sworn in. So I won't be voting on this. And since I won't be voting on this, I will interject a little bit into this conversation. At the last meeting that was brought up, I remained totally silent because I'm a council member and I didn't want to get involved in any family member's business. Since I basically have no authority to vote on this tonight, I feel a little bit more comfortable doing it today. Let me just draw out a map of what we're talking about here. This lot, you have the Messer Street that comes down, you got Joe's Barbecue on Top Street. You have Messer. And you have East Main Street here. The lot sits right here on the corner. There's a sidewalk that runs right across the front of it. When the property was purchased back in 2003, I think it was, the sidewalk was actually contained in the property. The property line ran all the way around like that. When the streetscape project came along, they needed the sidewalk in order to go forward with the streetscape project. The sidewalk there again was on our property there. The sidewalk was given to the city in exchange for a curb being put right down this way. The curb was put there because water comes in off Top Street, comes flowing down this way, and comes right across the property like that. That's the way it was when we got it. The property, we couldn't grow grass on it.
Those
We
are not
couldn't.
the official. We have blueprints in there. We'll get them.
We couldn't grow grass on it. It was a muddy pit.
That's
It
fine.
was terrible looking. So in exchange for the sidewalk being given to the city, this curb was put in to keep the water off. Kind of like you have a dam to hold water back. You have something like that to keep the water from flowing across it. When the sidewalk was put in, none of the council members were notified of the sidewalk. One, it was a shock to me that the sidewalk was going in that day. Did you know anything about it, Rod?
No, remember,
Council was not notified of it, as is typical.
One council person knew of it, I believe.
None of the rest of the council did. I didn't know anything about it. So we went down there and the sidewalk was probably about that far up. And the sidewalk original had a lip of about 1 inch. And right across the street here is the parking lot. sidewalk there was the same deal. It was about an inch. Enough to pull cars over, not a problem. There was not a curb cut there. And if anybody goes on Google Maps, look up Google Maps, do a street view, you can see all this because it still shows the old version. You can pan around, look at all the sidewalks from any angle you want to. Both of these had sidewalks. Both of them had about an inch width. They were virtually identical in their height. Once this sidewalk was put in, I called Bill because I thought it was a mistake. I thought, well, you know, they just forgot to put as a curb cut in because this lot had been used for a parking lot for over a year at this point. That's what the property is being used for. When you put a sidewalk in like that, you virtually cut off what the property is being used for. It's the same thing as building a brick wall in front of somebody's business and saying, sorry, you can't access your business anymore. So, like she was saying, they came in and complained. They immediately got a curb cut.
The next day. They came in one day, and the next day, the curb cut was in.
One of the excuses that was given to us right off the bat was, oh, it's within 50 feet of an intersection, which, so is this one. There's your intersection, there's 50 feet, and go measure it. So that didn't hold water. Our lot holds water now, because unbeknownst to any of us, there again, 2 curb cuts were put in right there. This one being within 50 feet of the intersection also. Well, now guess what? All this water that's coming down Messer Street is now coming back onto the property again. It's opened the floodgates back up. Grass is all dead. It's a muddy pit. I've even had some of our officers call us saying, what's going on with your lot down there? It's muddy. I just drove by it. It looks awful.
It has water standing on it right now.
It looks awful because it's catching every bit of this water that's coming down, where this was set up to keep that off the property in agreement for us giving the sidewalk to the city, which we did in good faith.
That's right.
But yet now, the sidewalk is blocking us off. We can't access the property. These curb cuts have been put in. You know, when you have a situation where you've been messed with one time by that blocking us off, it adds insult to injury to go back and destroy the very thing that we'd all asked for this lot to begin with when we gave the sidewalk to the city in good faith. So to me, all this was done just like she's explaining here, and I've got copies also of the text messages if anybody want them. All these text messages were sent from her to Donna, and there was only a couple of replies back with excuses as to why she hadn't got back to her.
But I had also called her and talked with her on the phone a couple of times in between.
Before or after all this was done?
In between.
No,
and let me make one
I'm
other
not gonna, we're not gonna, I can go back and
Let me just make one
read
other
that.
comment. The sidewalk was done at one time, the paving was done at another. You never said anything when the first sidewalks were done. And I am not the one that allowed them to go back and put a curb cut in at Fezziwig's. Bill actually did that. I learned about that later.
May I ask a question? Why can she not have an opening in her property?
Because the council voted for her not to.
The council?
No, the council didn't vote. There was just a no vote, but the other folks did not have to bring theirs to a vote to the council. They came in, complained at the city hall, and the next day, their curb cut was in.
And actually,
So there you go.
When we did that, the first part of it, we actually have an easement that she signed for a sidewalk to be in front of her place. It was supposed to have
As
two
we all
boxes
did.
with
Everyone
trees.
down that street gave their side. I'm not unique. Everyone down there did the
But
same thing.
it had 2 trees in the front of it with planters and boxes. Who would have known she wanted something different?
Who would have, anybody that would
Anybody that saw parking for a year
Actually,
straight down there would have known she wanted access
We were
for
actually
that.
putting a sidewalk there on the right of way, the city right of way, and she told us we were not allowed to touch it anymore. We were not allowed to do anything else.
to put a sidewalk, there is no easement. The other side of the street, they paved a parking lot for the Mason building.
The
Don't
sidewalk
tell
was
me
set
they
to
have
go
an
in
easement.
No.
They marked
Janice,
off
that
their
is a
parking
right of way.
spot.
There is a right of way there.
Really, and so.
And we tore it up. We put back what we tear up. When we had to take out the drain, we had to tear it
The
up.
other side of the street, they paved a parking lot for a private building and striped it for them. Don't go there. Don't go
Striped
there.
it for 'em?
Yes, you did. Go look. I was there the day it happened.
These
I
are
have
copies
pictures of that also.
of copies that she signed. And I think, do you have a copy, Rodney? You want another copy? Do you have a copy, Michael, or do you have a copy?
What is this that you're handing out?
This is the copy.
Of what?
Of the easement that you signed.
I'm not denying that we gave you an easement. At that same
I just
time.
felt like that if they needed to vote on this tonight, they
Yeah,
wanted
I
the
hope they
information.
do. That's good.
So,
And this was done in good faith with the curb being put in to keep the water off, which has now been destroyed basically at this point. The access from Messer Street is not an option at all really because of the water issue. So by the sidewalk having that giant lip on it now where people can't access the property. It's virtually cut it off from being a good usable lot for what we've intended for it to be. The curb cuts coming in from Messer Street have destroyed basically what we had worked out here. I mean, the reason that the city has this is because of that curb to keep the water off of the lot, which has now been compromised. The only viable option for this lot to be used as we were using it would be access off of East Main Street, which is now being denied because of the sidewalk. It was available prior to this, as was the parking lot across the street that used virtually an identical sidewalk, 1-inch lip across. They have a curb cut now, and we don't. I think this is politically motivated, and I believe that this is every kind of way to work this against us on this, to prevent that lot from being used for parking. And I think it's a shame because parking is a major issue downtown. And as she had said, the lot does help out with parking. I know a lot of business owners downtown appreciate the fact that there is places for people to pull in and park and not have to go around the block 14 times and try to find a place. And it also does benefit a nonprofit group with the animal rescue. And I can attest right now, 100% of that goes to the animals. It's just a shame. I don't see why it's such a fight to prevent a curb cut from going in there. To me, it just it's such a small issue for it to be fought so hard against. I think that, to me, as I say, is proof in the pudding. When you look at an issue like this, is how hard it's being fought against, and every possible argument being used, including the 50-foot intersection issue, which was violated by their own curb cut that went in.
And if you will remember, Michael, we learned that after the curb cut came in.
That is absolutely not true. You told us that standing down there on the line, right after the sidewalk had gone in. And that, I will attest to that with my hand on the Bible. Do not tell me that you found that out later, because you told right out of your mouth.
You're the one that told me. You told me after the curb cut.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now?
Excuse me, but let me just get in here. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You're in charge. And it went in wrong. So there you go. I will say this also.
Jan, let me make a statement.
No, excuse me, I'm speaking. I would appreciate not being interrupted.
This is still my meeting.
Excuse me.
Right now.
I don't think it's the city.
Give us a moment.
I'm a taxpayer. I will say this also. During all of this, I was told that I had to come in also and apply for my nonprofit license. Because during all of this, because it got pretty heated. So I came in like a good taxpayer would and said, well, I'm here to apply for my nonprofit license. That's what Ms. Thomas told me I needed to do. The girls at the office said, what is a nonprofit license? We don't know what that is. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. So, it became very elevated. There should not be a battle. We could take it to court. We're not going to take it to court. We're going to get what's fair. It just needs to be fair.
Well, Jan, I think you did look at taking it to court, and they told you that was the right thing to do. It was a safety issue down there.
Excuse me.
And that was one of the reasons we actually.
I'm sorry. Who said that?
Well, I've just been told that it was.
Wow.
But anyway, it was a safety issue.
I just want you to bank that statement
lots of people fall. That's why we even repaired the sidewalks. It wasn't to put a sidewalk that was 2 inches bigger than the side. I didn't go measure them, Jan. I did not measure sidewalks. Didn't know we needed.
It would have been,
So
it just
make that note. Measure the height of sidewalks from now on.
Roy is looking. We have 2 sets of blueprints, and so he's getting those, and he will be glad to show them to you guys later today. He said he would do that. So
there's a copy of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but
there are 2 sets. One was by Yeager, and the other, but we have 2 for that base.
So she's going to go by
actually
one,
getting
and
the
I guess y'all
latest
go by
version.
one.
So to go back to me telling you about the 50-foot intersection, what I told you is on the fire hydrant, you said that you couldn't access within 30 feet of the fire hydrant, and that's not the case. You can't park a car within 30 feet of the fire hydrant, and that's 15 feet in each direction.
That conversation came up after that curb cut had been put in.
And the conversation we had nothing to do with a fire hydrant. It was the intersection.
And that's when I said, well, then is the curb on the other side in compliance? And you said, not really.
I think
we talked about the fire hydrant.
But we talked about the fire hydrant, parking a car, and a curb cut.
The 50-foot curb cut within 50 feet is a part of the city rules and regulations. The
But
the
that
fire
was
hydrant-
after the curb had already been put in, up the side of the street, not before the second one was asked for. The two that are on the side of her property, that's when we learned it, after they had already been poured.
Those were not there the night that you told us that it was 50, to be within 50 feet of an intersection. Those were not there. You know how I know they weren't there? Because her van, as you pulled up that night to talk to us that night, your van was parked on the, you had to drive over the sidewalk to get onto your property that night. I remember
She
that.
went
'cause
over
they-
the front sidewalk.
Right, why did you have to do that if there were curb
Well,
cuts?
I'm talking about the side curb cuts.
Right, so they weren't there, were they? Why did she have to drive over
I
the
don't know why
sidewalk?
she did it. That-
Because the
that
curb
was
cuts
there.
weren't there when you were telling us this.
If we just step back a moment, do you see how strongly we are so adamant about she is not going to have those curb cuts? Just take note of that. I'm about done with this. We pay our taxes just like everyone else downtown, but there are two people sitting at that table that are going to be damned and sure that she's not going to get those curb cuts if they have anything to do with it. This is the
Actually,
same.
I think we need
This
to
is
look
the
at what's
same
best
thing.
for the city
Oh,
taxpayers.
and
That's
anyway,
what we need to do.
I'm
In
speaking, please,
voting-
Mrs. Thomas.
In
Miss
voting, we need
Thomas.
to, that's how we need to look at this. And all of us who are voting, we need to look at what's best for the city, and we need to look at what the city has in store for that project as First Streetscape. And that's what we need to look at. We don't need to look at, and you've already said yourself you don't care about the city. You said that a few minutes ago. But all of us, we are voted in to vote for what's best for the city, and that's what we all need to do. We may have differences, but we need to vote for what's best for the city.
May I speak now, please?
Yes,
I was
you may.
interrupted so rudely. It's very obvious to me, and I would think perhaps to some of you sitting here, how adamant they are about not allowing that curb cut. I'm here to ask for what I think is fair, what I think is very fair, and I would like a curb cut off East Main Street. I want to get the curb corrected down the Messer Street side of my lot. And I would like the city to put some gravel on there so we can get back to work to the business of our nonprofit. And it has definitely been interrupted as a result of these decisions that were made almost a year ago without any consultation to the property owner.
May I add something? I think the individual, the private citizen, needs to come before the city in business.
Okay, thank you for your input.
You're welcome.
I'm also a big fan of limited government myself.
Let me ask a question before anybody else starts. I know basically what a curb cut is and all like it, but what are we looking at? Is it lowering lowering the sidewalk, or is it cutting the sidewalk so it's on the slope? How wide? What's involved in what are you asking for?
I'm asking for, go down, if you'll drive down the street, right across the street is a curb cut, right down the street in front of Sycamore Crossing. They have a curb cut there that goes right into their little parking area also. So they're all up and down the street, and you can see them.
So are we looking at
And
a car wide, 10 feet wide?
I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly. I went down and measured everything. I didn't bring those measurements with
think it's
me.
12.
I've totally, I've measured that whole thing out from every angle on that. We've definitely done our research on
Because it
it.
starts slanting down.
I'd give them 12 foot, I'd give them turning capacity, I guess.
You'd have to take it.
You lower the sidewalk or you cut it down with a slope?
You cut it and taper it down.
You have to taper it, yeah.
So you put that many more dips in the sidewalk.
So with the slope, I know we've got them all over
We've got all
town,
kinds of
but with the
problems.
slope in the sidewalk, then you got the, people don't look where they're going. Possibility of
Well-
falls. but you-
Well, the thing about it is they're up
But we
and down.
They're all, there's one right across the street, there's one right down
And
the
that's-
street.
that's
I
what
mean,
you
we're
take.
not gonna be
We had
unique.
so many broken up sidewalks down through there. That was a problem, and it wasn't just to fix the sidewalks. When we got in there to start fixing things, then we had a sewer issue, then we had those two drain issues, and it kept snowballing into bigger problems.
This is, to give,
And then it took the milling down, and it brought the road down, so, which that road's coming down even some more at the front part of up there, the kind of the center of town.
Yeah, with
It's coming down quite a
streetscape, it
bit.
will show, you know, what you want to have is conducive walking traffic, and, you know, you want to have your sidewalks wide enough, and then you don't want them flush with the street, because that creates a hazard. for people when they're pulling in, you know. You want
Working on the
to,
sidewalk.
yeah, you want to
Walk
make
right
it,
there.
you want to have them raised, but just for safety, so people don't pull off the side, off the roads onto the sidewalks.
To give an analogy of the harm that is done to the parking down there, it would be the same thing as going down to any of those businesses that front East Main Street, walling up their front door with concrete blocks and saying, well, you can't use their front door anymore off East Main Street, but you got this little side road coming down there, and we just sent the guys down with some sledgehammers, we busted the side of your building open. Now they can access it from that road.
I saw
That's the
where the
equivalent of
parking
what's
lot was
happened.
full most weeks.
That's
So you
not a
could
good
put up- you could
analogy.
pull up
You're still
full
parking and your
signs.
parking lot's full
And
a big
people
part
would
of
be
the time.
forced to access that hole in the side of the building the city cut. If, I mean, you've got to be able to use your business,
Has
but
it adversely affected that business?
adversely
My
affected the
business
lot by turning it into a
And the
mud pit.
value, yes, it has.
Because, I mean, like I
That
said, I
lot
saw
wasn't
it.
purchased to be a lot that fronts Messer Street. That lot was purchased to be a lot that fronts East Main Street, just like everybody else that fronts
And
East
really,
Main Street needs
the
to have the right to
issue
be able
is-
to access it from East Main
But
Street.
on that too, you have to remember you're in central business, which is build property line to property line down there. You don't, parking is not required for central business. It is for C2, C1, but it's
Property
not
line to
for
property
that.
line,
So you
exactly.
build property line to property line, except off the back, you have to have a 10-foot side. But like most businesses down there are built up to the sidewalks.
What's your point?
So, I mean,
It's just that's kind of the way downtown.
It's another argument. I hope
I don't even
everyone is
understand
hearing
the
these
point on that.
arguments. Anything to keep the curb
I'm
cut
just
from
telling
going
you
in.
that's, I mean, if you know, if that were a building, if you had a building there,
Yeah.
it would go up to the sidewalk.
Right.
You wouldn't have a curb cut
And the
even
point-
driving into the building.
And if the
You'd be able to-
Fezziwigs building, that parking area had a building there, there would be no
And she
parking lot
and she
there.
probably will
So,
eventually.
anyway, that's
Because it's-
irrelevant. We're arguing points that are irrelevant. I'm trying to stay on task. I'm asking for the curb cut off East Main, for the Messer Street curb to be reinstated to our satisfaction, so we're not sucking water off of East First Street, and for gravel to go on the property. All these other arguments are proving my point right down the line, that they'll go to any extent to prevent this curb cut off East Main Street from going in. I don't know what their motivation is. I don't know what their motivation was at the time, but I can tell you, I'm the only one who had to come to the city council and present. The other people, I'm speaking, Ms. Whitener,
And
if
I'm
you would
letting you,
please,
Jan.
okay, well, let me finish. I'm not here to be interrupted over and over again. I'm here to make my point. And my point is, I want that back. I want to be treated like every other taxpayer down that street that got their curb cuts, who did not have to come into the city council and be subjected to you and Ms. Thomas and your negativity and all you've put us through, besides our nonprofit group. We don't appreciate it. We see discrimination written all over this, and I'm expecting to see a curb cut coming off East Main because that is the fair thing to do. And yes, my blood pressure is up. It has been up for a year, almost. And I don't appreciate it. I don't know what your motivation was. I don't care what it was. I'm here to get the curb cut. I'm here to get what's fair, what every other taxpayer is entitled to. We pay our taxes. We pay them in good faith. We don't perjure ourselves to vote in the city. Maybe I should have, like a lot of people did, so that I could have voted and maybe this whole picture would have changed, but I'm not going to stoop to that depth. So I'm just saying to you, I expect what's fair, and we will have a curb cut off of East Main, and I want that curb down Messer Street corrected back to my satisfaction, and some gravel put on there to absorb some of that water that is standing on that property even as we speak.
Okay, do you have anything else you would like this council to do for you while you're asking for that? Just anything else?
That is the most sarcastic
No,
remark,
I'm
Ms.
just asking.
Whitener, and
You
I
want-
don't, and
you
I
want
took it
gravel,
just as you
You want the
delivered
curb
it.
cut, and you want what else?
How unprofessional of you, in my humble
I'm just
opinion.
asking, Jan.
I'm asking for what's fair, and that is what I'm asking for. And if you can't stand that, then there must have been some sort of motivation behind not
It'll
allowing
be
it
on
in the
for
first
vote tonight,
place.
Jan.
You bet it will.
Okay, any other questions?
Just how many cars can park in that area down there? Have y'all ever figured out?
On our lot,
Yeah.
I'm not the one who actually parks the cars. We have another volunteer who is quite humorous. and
I
does
think it's
that.
between
But
30
we can
and
probably
40,
get
right?
around 40. I think
Estimate.
we've had as many as
It could
40
really help
cars.
the parking downtown.
So would you
Oh,
be willing to?
it absolutely
would you be willing to let
does.
people park there
So-
through the week? That would be awesome if you would do that for the city, Jan. And I'm sure that people could pay. That if
Well-
you could help the city like that, that would be so wonderful.
if they could get into it.
Well, would you be willing to?
Oh, now we're gonna bargain Jen's curb cut. Well, anyway, at whatever rate, I'm sorry, I'm just calling it like I see
Parking
it.
is such a big issue down there.
It is.
That would be so awesome if you would work with us on that through the week. I mean, letting people park in there.
I don't think it was bargaining too. I think she was just suggesting because it is such a problem.
I think that would be
We're
good.
very open to that, but right now there is no way, and I'm glad you brought this up, Ms. Thomas, there's no way during the week that we can allow people to park there unless we've gone down there and looked at it, because it's a mud hole, because we suck all that water. And right now it's a lake. It's got standing water on it even as we speak. So there's no way we can do that.
One of the reasons when it had grass on it before that we didn't park every single day was because the grass would have to kind of rejuvenate during the week. Even just parking a couple days on the weekend, you know, the grass gets worn down. It's kind of a non-issue now that the grass is all dead, but you know, back when we had grass on it, that was one reason that we didn't continually park every single day, was because, you know, it does look attractive down there to have the white grass and not dirt and mud and stuff like that. So that was one issue with it.
But we're realizing as much water as we're sucking now, we're going to have some grass. We're going to have to do something because it's a lake.
Yeah, and like I said,
and we honestly have entertained the idea if we can get it so we're not sinking every time you drive on it. In all due respect, that's why we can't do it when we're not there. If we could, we're looking into that. And we would be more than happy to put a sign up that it's sponsored by the city of Blue Ridge or whatever needs to be done, or, you know, that whatever about parking, anything. Because, yeah, we would be happy to use that during the week. It's money to our rescue, and in essence, we want to think that we help the county and the city. I mean, we don't discriminate with the animals we take in. And we think we're doing a pretty good service. We've moved over 1,000 animals out of this area in 2013. There's not another group in North Georgia that can tell you they've moved that many animals. And we do it pretty well, in my humble opinion. So that's what our money goes for.
It would be nice if we, working together, which I think this council needs to, and all of us, if the city could volunteer to pave it for you, put in good drainage so that you can still come off at Messer Street. Well, but we could use it for parking. And then we keep our sidewalk for our pedestrians. It could be a win-win for everybody, just saying.
Okay.
Something to think
Anything
about.
else? Vicki, do you have something? We did have some discussion, I think, before you came in about that can't be on the ballot till May. Did you hear me? Okay. Anything else?
This is an old issue, but I never have heard of an answer. Why does the owner of the ice skating rink have a city cell phone?
Because it's the city cell phone we use for the golf cart, and it is the money, a percentage of that comes back to the city, so we let him use it through the winter because it's not used. It's the same fee no matter what.
I have an issue with that too. I think it's.
How many
We
other,
can ask him to
business
change it to
sense
his
by-
if you have an issue, Michael. It wasn't an issue before. He had it last year when you were.
I wasn't aware he had it last year until I
It's
found
on
out
the
about this year.
sign. The number's on the sign.
how many other city cell phones are out?
I guess my question would be, how many other businesses in downtown Blue Ridge would like a city cell phone to be able to use?
Or have their utilities paid.
Or all their advertising paid?
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
I didn't get an answer.
There's, I don't know, 6, 7 cell phones, I think, at this point. I don't know. I think a couple of our crew members have them. Bill Sowers has one. I have one, as everyone knows.
Which we have gotten requests from Verizon, didn't you? They'd like to get an opportunity to be part of this, you know, to be part of that as well. So we might look at, you know, we'll be doing more research into it.
That, to me, that's an unnecessary expense.
What, a cell phone?
A cell phone cell phones out that the city pays for.
Well, now, it's under contract, so it would just be sitting in a box if not. So we can ask him to change that over, and, you know, that's not a big deal. We were paying it anyway. We paid it all through the year, no matter what. We probably have 8 cell phones, if I'm not mistaken, but I can get you the actual number on that.
I'd like to see, and who has them?
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to point out, I turned my
Water
cell
Plant
phone
has
in
one.
a long time ago.
Sewer
Actually,
Plant
probably
has one.
in 2000. I got elected in 2009. I think by 2010 or so, I had turned mine back in. Maybe
Did you have
2000.
a need for a city cell phone?
I really didn't. You know, nowadays with the cell phone plans being so generous that they are on your minutes, and most people have their own cell phones,
Right.
you know, these days anyway. For me, what I was looking at, well, you know, people call me all the time on my personal cell phone. It really doesn't run my bill up because most of the minute packages nowadays are unlimited anyway. But even the ones that are out there are so generous because the main thing that phone companies are geared up toward now is, you know, the internet-based stuff, the data packages and so forth like that, which with a city cell phone, the main thing you use it for is conversation anyway. So for me, I just turned mine back in. I thought it was totally unnecessary.
I believe I was the first one to turn them into. I did that because I have unlimited minutes and I just felt like I was losing calls. And to me, it's hard to keep up with two phones. So.
It's like me, everybody
So why
calls me
did a
on my
private
personal
business
phone.
get one then? If that's the case, if you all didn't say they were necessary, why did a private business get
But
one
one
from
thing
the
about
city?
having the city cell phones, we have workers that have plans that are just so many minutes. Some of them even use those straight talks. So if I have to call, like I know when Ed was here, I was interfering with his minutes when I have to call him about water leaks and things like that. So we do have some employees, pretty much the key employees for the department, the supervisors,
on call,
the water plant, and
Yeah, I understand that.
it in the last 4 years, I have to call them all hours, and you can definitely be assured that in the last 4 days, I have called them as much as 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, several of them. And I don't feel quite as guilty if they have a phone that they are responsible for picking up. And at least with them having city cell phones, they are responsible for answering those calls.
But
Whereas
not a
people that
private
don't have
business.
city cell phones sometimes just don't answer your calls.
How many more private businesses are carrying cell phones
There's
from
no
the
one,
city?
and there's no one, Jan.
Okay, I'm just
there's
curious.
not a private business.
No other, just that one?
There's not a private business. We're part of their business. We're partners.
Is that
It's
a
a partnership
nonprofit?
between us
Is that a
and-
nonprofit business?
We are
It's a for-profit though. It's
Just
for-profit.
as
And the
the
city
other
can
ice skating
profit.
rinks that are working with other cities in the areas and the state actually. in
And
one
just like,
situation.
okay, I'm not gonna argue that point. I'm here to get my curb cuts. Y'all can deal with that.
The one at that's downtown Atlanta, they furnish everything for that ice skating rink. So, you know, it's not an unusual thing. And we do get a percentage back. I don't even think the state gets a percentage back on that one. I do not know that, so do not quote me on that. I will check
We
that
got
out.
$4,313 back last year.
That you can measure.
That we got back from the ice skating rink. There was over $15,000 in private donations that went toward the ice skating rink, and there was $12,000 from the city that went into the ice skating rink. The return on that was $4,313 back from the ice skating rink, a net loss of around $12,000.
Right.
This year, the last time I checked, which was several weeks ago, we had around $3,000 in donations as compared to last year when we had $15,000 in donations. The last contract that was put out to the ice skating rink, which was not reviewed by the city attorney at the time it was voted on, I don't know if it's ever been reviewed by the city attorney, allowed him to gross $50,000 before we were paid back anything. The last year's contract before that was $40,000, so it changed $10,000. On top of that, we have less donations, and I'm just waiting to see what it's going to be this year. That's
Well, will they be back next year?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think he has several other cities that have asked him to come there. So I think he's going to move to another city.
I think he needs to.
And, you know, realize that's not through your taxpayer dollars, that's through tourism dollars that does sponsor that. And you cannot measure the sales tax dollars that it's helped generate. So I do know that when I was there yesterday, some people had come from another town, I think it was Murphy, and they were going to the Black Sheep to eat. So, you know, you can't measure what the Black Sheep made or even maybe the stores downtown.
you can't measure it.
So you cannot measure
You
the
cannot
sales tax
measure it.
dollars.
What you can measure is $12,000 loss last year.
Right.
We'll just wait and see.
And the
what
bill
that-
for
You
that
don't
cell
see what it
phone.
did in sales tax dollars.
Wait and see.
So.
Then we can make a good determination.
Okay,
next
so
year.
I
Our
think
new
we're
council.
finished for the day, because I have other
I'll
meetings
make
to
a
go
motion,
to.
we adjourn this meeting.
Before you make that motion, I'd just like to add one other thing, is I did not vote for the ice skating rink, and neither did Rodney,
But you did the first year.
to try it out. And after I saw what had happened, I decided it was not a good thing. So I'll
Do
make,
we have a second?
I will
A
second it.
All in favor?
Anybody up for a field trip?